Hey guys, Chris here, and I'm a Ukrainian Canadian. Today's November 3rd, 2022, and let's get over the news happening in Ukraine, shall we? Sorry guys, I had to actually delete one of the videos I posted today because it had a copyright claim on one of the videos I was showing, the music. So sorry about that, I had to delete it and totally forgot about actually music and copyright within YouTube. So I'm re-uploading this one. And so I wanted to first get into, without any further ado, to the Russian losses as of today, which are really high. So today, again, it's the same number. Over 700 soldiers died. As I've said my previous video, the Russian losses are going to get only bigger from now on, as the mobilized soldiers are on the front lines. They're poorly equipped, poorly trained. They don't know what they're really doing there, and so unfortunately, they will be dying, and there will be more of these losses. And I say unfortunately because they're also humans. So in other news as well, I had some viewers that commented that they wanted to have some sort of weather forecast. I'm not going to do this all the time, but I think it's good to once in a while put in perspective what type of weather is right now in Ukraine. And it's usually very European weather. So the first two cities, Luhansk and Donetsk, are very close to one another, and this is where most of the fighting is ongoing. So Luhansk, Donetsk, and Kherson. So I pulled out three forecasts. And so for the next 5 days in Luhansk and Donetsk, we can see that it's rather mild weather. It's still going to be cold during the night, so between 5 to 10 degrees during the day, and between -4 to 3 degrees during the night. So I'm expecting within the next few weeks that the weather is going to get colder. There will be some snowfall in the east, but for the south, in Kherson, it's a more continental climate. Thus, it's not going to freeze as fast, and the ground is still going to be a little bit muddy, and thus difficult for the Ukrainian troops to move and maneuver very quickly. So I think that in Kherson will probably have less gains compared to Donetsk and Luhansk, where as the mud stops and the ground gets more solid, for the Ukrainian soldiers, will be easy to drive around through, like small narrow roads that are not full of mud and dirt. So that's it for the weather in Ukraine. So in other news, I thought that was really interesting is that Russia does not have enough money to pay their mobilized soldiers. So now the Russian authorities are saying that they're having difficulty or they have difficulty paying the previously promised money to the mobilized Russians. These problems will only exacerbate social tension in Russian society. Of course it will. Pay is a huge thing, right? We're not doing this for free. But second of all, I had a very legitimate question as well in regards to what do these men do with, some of them have credit card debt, loans that they took on for mortgages and car payments and, cell phone plans. What happens to that? And let's not forget as well that Russia is a very conservative country. Me being Ukraine, I know that. Men are still considered as the breadwinner, and the women usually are stay-at-home wives that produce children, right? It's not the majority, of course, or I should say all of them, but it's still a large population is like that. And so what happens? These single women staying in Russia, have to figure out how to get an income, and their mobilized soldiers are not getting paid. So there's a real problem that's going to rise up in the next few months for sure in Russia, because pay, if you don't have the money, you go and you revolt. That's like the last thing that's going to happen. And huge news in Kherson. Again, I would say huge because we haven't had a lot of news happening in the last few weeks in Kherson, like nothing massive. So, in the sense that we took a settlement in the northern front of Kherson, and that's great. I mean, it's a small settlement. If we look at the map here, let me zoom in. And this settlement is right here, so north of the city of Kherson, so between Novakakhovka and Kherson, and we managed to take it a settlement here. So perhaps what the Ukrainian army is trying to do is create a pincer movement and get through the dam and cut the Russians off from behind, and close that Novakakhovka pocket as another one does another perhaps movement through this highway and tries to reach Antonivka Bridge or the city limits of Kherson. We're probably going to try to push them here. And perhaps for the next slide, that is why the Russians are pulling out in a certain way. Let's take a look at that. So locals from Kherson report that the Russian forces have abandoned checkpoints in Chornobaivka, Stepanivka, Bilotserka, and Korabelny district in south of Kosheva River. So are the Russians retreating to the left bank? I think it's possible, but I also think perhaps they're moving their troops to reinforce this front because perhaps they're expecting that the Ukrainians, if we look at the map, will push from this side of the city and not from this side of the city through Chornobaivka, because this is a rather well fortified position. But again, it's unconfirmed because they've also said that Chornobaivka, they've left from there. So are they really retreating to the left bank, or are they trying to reinforce a certain position more either outside of the city or close to Novakhovka? Again, let me know, guys. I'm just making up, certain possibilities here, but it's interesting to see that nonetheless we're capable of still pushing a little bit here, and perhaps that's what it takes for us to have a big breakthrough in the next few weeks, as the winter is coming. Another thing to be taken with a grain of salt, I'm not going to hover over it too long, but apparently today somebody removed a Russian flag from the administrative building in Kherson. And this is like a symbol that Russia holds Kherson. It's a massive administrative building. So I wouldn't think it's anyone that would just remove it. So I'm not sure what this means, again, to be taken with a grain of salt, but it's still like this is one thing that you never take away a flag from is this building 100%. So perhaps it's some sort of messaging from the Russian side that they are planning to retreat completely from the city. And another thing that kind of supports that is the fact that we've seen some boats around Kherson, well, all of them actually, that have bullet holes and have sunk and are unusable at this point. And perhaps the mobilized Russians won't be allowed to escape. That'll be very interesting to see. And perhaps, the better equipped, more experienced soldiers are going to go to the left bank, so towards Crimea, whereas the less experienced are going to be left to die and essentially defend, without any support from the other side. Perhaps that's what's going to happen, as we see here. And today I have two videos for you guys. So the first one is about the mobilized men complaining that they're not getting paid what they were promised. And the second one is an ad, and unknown from who, but it's a very funny ad. So let me show you the mobilized men video first. Let's click on the right one and let's listen.
За нами никто не бегал. Я с Москвы приехал в свой родной город, блядь, чтобы уйти со своими ребятами, потому что Родина. И потому что президент обращение сделал ко всем. Один раз в военкомат я пришел, он сказал, мне объяснил военком, военный комиссар, что, говорит, вы только туда, как приедете, в течение 2-3 дней единоразовая выплата будет в размере 300 тысяч.
Never happened. Never happened.
Подождите, по поводу 300 тысяч. В Госдуму был внесен депутатами Коммунистической партии Российской Федерации.
I found it very funny. Deputies of the Communist Party of Russia. That doesn't sound very promising to me when they introduce a bill. Anyways, this is the video. It's the entirety of just them complaining. But you can see how many men are out there. All of them probably have wives, or some of them have kids, and they're not even being paid by the Russian army because they don't really care, or Putin and his government for that matter of fact, because nobody cares about them. They are just cannon fodder. Like at this point, that's the only thing that can explain why they're not being paid, and why pay them when and most likely they will die on the front lines. So that's the reality of things. So now I'm going to show you a video without the audio, but essentially it's an ad about Britain freezing to death and how the Russians portrayed it. I'm not sure if it's a government-sponsored ad or some amateur, but it's quite funny. Either way, it's from the perspective of a Russian. And so I'm going to cut off the audio. Sorry for the quality. There is a copyright on this. There's some copyrighted music, so I'm just going to narrate a little bit. So much snow in the UK. What happened this year? So she's looking for her next man, and Paul, unfortunately, is freezing to death. Now, a guy from Germany, not bad, but not her type. And now Sviatoslav from Moscow. Now he's likable. Of course he is. Look at him cooking, and actually he has electricity compared to her, who doesn't because she's in the United Kingdom. So, and now he's like, hey, look, I have a heater. Amazing. She's going head over heels in a hot bubble bath as well. So, she's convinced he's the one. Anyways, now he's asking for photos from her so she can take a selfie so he can see who she is. So she's trying to figure out a way that she, can make a good selfie because she doesn't have electricity and her battery is low on her iPhone. And now she's figuring out a light source where she can take a decent picture so her face is not all black. And she manages to take one, but she's not satisfied. No more water, of course. They seem to depict very well a sort of like how it is actually real life in Russia. I'm pretty sure this happened in Russia millions of times. And she sends it to him. He's like, wow, you're beautiful. Come to Moscow. And so she flies to Moscow to meet him for the first time. And there she is. So I'm not going to show the end because it's 18 plus. Essentially, at the end, it's just women in lingerie that have also been fooled by this man to come visit him because he has electricity. So anyways, let me know, guys, what you think about this video. I thought it was pretty funny, and it's a very bitter ad from Russia. They're not happy that Europe can, live so comfortably and they can't. So that's the gist of it. Thank you again. Thank you again, guys, for watching my videos. You can comment, like, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.